All right, let's get it. Daily trading recap for Thursday, the 7th of October here, 2021. Big old P&L day, $4 in the green. Let's go. Obviously, not the most exciting amount of moving P&L. I can buy a few McDonald's ice cream cones. That's one plus to it, but I certainly can't complain at green days. I mean, 3 green days in a row. I've not had that in an incredibly long time. I cannot complain at that. Just still work to go on the entry execution side of it, position sizing of all of it. I'm excited about each and every single one of these opportunities over these, especially coming off of 3 different tickers trading today. Opportunities to expand upon. Definitely continuing to refine myself as a trader as well too. So just exciting all around. Before we get into it, let's just get the housekeeping going first. For dollar volume, NASDAQ still pretty low dollar volume, 172 billion dollar volume. We are, of course, 2.5 hours after the close here, though. $247 billion volume on the IC, and then OTC markets $2.5 billion. SPY, little update again today. Daily looks like that, so maybe a little bit of bounce off for this consolidation range. Seeing a lot of the pre-market movers fading during pre-market and market hours. I'll pull up CNET here as reference. As a morning dove opportunity, looking mainly for big pre-market spike, entry point, or validation of the fall down off of that peak through the crack of VWAP. And then risking, of course, would be high of date on these kind of fake or just speculative trades at this point. We're looking for those charts to happen more and more again as an indicator to potentially start trading these more to the downside. CNET, all of these 4 different tickers that I'm going to mention here, they just have wide-ranging different floats, different company sectors, so it's not like they're hitting one specific certain things. And of course, there's other ones that are moving, bigger percentage movers in the pre-market that do a little bit different things in this one, or they do have a little bit more of a spike, or they're just a little bit varied, but I think it's just more of that intuition and feel type of thing with these ones that kind of have some loose parameters to set that we're looking for, but then, again, it's just that little tiny feel, that little gut instinct that gets you to get in these ones and pick the right ones in a sense. So of course, we're not going to pick 100% correctly all the time, but just kind of fine-tuning that more and more. Jan, another one. Got this pre-market spike on news. I even saw this one live or watching. It was happening right at that would be 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time frame. News catalyst comes out, and then you get the crack interview app, and I was thinking about getting short here even, but I was like, oh, that was too quick. I was watching it at this 7.4-ish level thinking, oh, okay, I could go here, and then immediately just dropped down to like hard under $7 itself. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, whatever. I'm willing to let it go. Curled back a little bit more, but then just faded hard. Had a hard down that one. Easy short. Even nice reject at VWAP for that. That was actually the biggest volume candle on that one. But yeah, just really meaningless chart. Just looking for those patterns overall. BBI, same type of thing. This was pretty early in the pre-market, so that would be 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time frame. But then you get that peak. Close back under VWAP on the red candle, failure to maintain back above VWAP, and then reversal direction of that VWAP pretty much immediately. If it pulls up nicely here to see that gray line of just, it's a V. You could call it the VWAP even. It's the letter V though for how quickly it's going up, and then just pulling back hard with the volume fading on that too. So great and easy short pattern to see on that one. And then last one, CYRN. So these are just a few. This one's a little bit different. Of course, I had a little perk in the after hours here, but big pre-market spike, and then same thing. Still maintaining that spike high of day as the risk. Getting short really anywhere here and just playing the fade is an easy and very comfortable hold. Maybe it's just in that early of the pre-market and for what it was doing after hours for each and every single individual one. There's, of course, different factors in it, but looking back at the chart, if you kind of keep it on a longer term time frame, for what you're trading it for, maybe like looking at it on the 5-minute chart, and then not keeping it 100% the main focus on your screen. Just keep it in the corner of your eye. Watch it. I think these are great and awesome. Easy opportunities to capitalize on. So 3 trades today, again, like I mentioned, BBIG, DATS, and then GROM. All of them pretty correct in my thesis of what I wanted to see out of them. BBIG especially too, but we'll get into that. Just dealing with the chop and had to take some losses that we were dealing with in the moment for what time perspective I was looking at them for. But good for me, at least, to say that, hey, they kind of worked out in the end too. I wasn't totally 100% off. I think this month especially too, we're just stepping into more substantial based trades and making our mark with that. So let's get into BBIG in that regard. I mean, same thing to mention with those 4 other preliminary tickers. This one kind of reminded me of LMFA yesterday. Of course, this is that former runner looking on the daily. Had this nice run back in late August here, early September, where you get the push, and then of course another day here back in January. That was held pretty well all this time, but now we're kind of in the downside still of that move. So that was the reason why today I did not take a huge position on it, as you can see in that 20 share print that it says there. For what this trade was, only 20 shares. Really was speculative on. I thought this thing could have actually a little bit more play in it of what it wanted to do for volatility. Maybe I did not think it was going to break high of day, again similar to LMFA, but a good sign to see that we get that spike off of news. I don't even know what this news was today. They had AdRiser, a leading ad tech company, has agreed to be acquired and fully integrated. So they had acquisition news on that one. Of course, this is a bit of a higher float at 47 million, but again, that former runnerness does not go away. That's always fresh in retail traders' minds, at least, to get the nice spike and then eventually just starts weakening off of that peak and then finally get the VWAP crack. And as I was watching this thing at that VWAP crack, I'm thinking, okay, this could be a nice shorting opportunity. This is certainly where my strategy, that morning dump strategy, would 100% say this is your point of, even when, especially when it had this little attempt once again to try and reclaim VWAP, go to back to the upside, potentially saying this was a little bit of a fake out and then failing once more, fading off that. I was like, oh, this could be a really good sign too, but I still was very that former runnerness of this thing, and that we're still kind of in the backside of this, that it could curl a little bit more to the upside off of that, even though it's had a few first green days and even days like this too, that's have attempted to do that. It still could do that to the sense if it had the volume to come in. This was a big volume mover in the pre-market too. So just carrying and walking on eggshells all the time to not trying to force anything that isn't there, or just force a short blindly because I feel like the data is there, even though I'm feeling more and more confident every single day now, seeing more and more of these charts. But even at the open, we're failing to come close to VWAP. I'm saying, come on, get some amount of strength. We're getting these good bottom wicks on these red candles. Of course, whatever weight that has immediately out of the morning bell within those first 2-minute candles, those bottom wicks can do whatever they want. But I mean, still getting bottom wicks on those red candles showing that there's some amount of buying support at least, but just failing, continuing to snap lows. So it's even at that 2nd-minute point, I'm saying, okay, shoot. I've got 200 shares here. That was really what I was looking to size in as my full position size on this one, for how confident I was it was eventually going to die off, potentially maybe even in the afternoon. I said, okay, I think this one feels a little bit like LMFA to me like yesterday. Could just start dying off here, fading immediately. So I got a little 20 share entry at 5.9, I think on the dot exactly. And then it started fading off more, pulling off harder and harder. I'm going, shoot, I missed the opportunity to get a full position size. It was just looking bleaker and bleaker that it was going to have any amount of pop. This was the best pop that it really had. Maybe this was a little bit bigger in that sense, but just really did not have the legs to even attempt for a better short entry to get short into a little peak closer to VWAP or even above VWAP to get short into. So just covered. Wasn't so hard pressed on getting a great exit on this one because it was just so small of a trade anyway. Covered the borrowing fees a little bit. I think it ended up being a $2 winner in total after $2 borrow fees in that sense. So got a perfect limit order that got blown through right at 5.6 that I had a limit order in. Just great practice and experience against too, but it was just tough because yes, it was a winner, but then it's like, oh, missed that opportunity to get the full position size in it. So it's like, in the end, it's really a wash trade P&L wise. It's not like it's padding anything or pushing me nicely in the trading situation, but it's still, I got to keep reminding myself too, it's that great reformation. Hey, we're going in the right direction. I'm at least seeing a little bit to understand and recognize, I think this one could fade a little bit more. So maybe I do need to trust that instinct going forward just a little bit more, not pushing it so much harder, but hey, if you think you need a starter position, or if you think it's not the correct entry still as of yet, I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to take that away too. If we start getting more and more of these over and over and over again, we start kind of wasting day trades, taking these types of trades, then we can start acknowledging, okay, now that first entry's got to be, even in pre-market, we potentially need to take that entry like this one today too, offered. Establish your entry at that point too, and then let the first few minutes of market hours do whatever it wants to do. At the end of the day, what these charts are showing is they're going to die off within intraday. So that's what we want to profit off of, and that's what we want to hit as the trade in that sense. That is all I had on BBIG. Let's go to DATS now. This one I did not have coming in on my watch list. This was kind of just a TUI alert that I saw in the pre-market to say, oh, I looked at the daily. I knew this was a former runner, the former kind of Wall Street bet style play in a little bit of the backside. And okay, sweet. Yeah, looking for that first green day pattern. I can totally identify that and see it. So came into the market looking pretty much for that. 70 share trade. This was playing off of VWAP holding pretty well. The volume coming in right out of the gate, holding that VWAP line well. Then we get another push to a new high of day in this third minute here. And I say, sweet, I think this could go far more. This could have really even a squeeze right away out of the gate within these first 3 minutes of market open. Just kind of protecting myself-ish, but I was thinking the trade was going to happen potentially from there. It did go a little bit further from that point, but then looked weak, pretended to break out underneath VWAP. I think got bought up again, struggled again to reach that anywhere around that 84 point, and then pulled off hard. And that's when I cut it, giving it as much room as possible to breathe. And it was actually a good cut for me too in my book, because it wasn't just slapping down hard, running through stops in this 1 minute candle, even though it kind of looks like that looking in hindsight. This was a little bit of a slower candle, and it was a good exit for me to say where my risk level was around this open price, around this kind of, it's unfortunate because this $8 whole level is just below that open price. So wasn't going to risk all the way down there knowing I was going to take a lot more slippage if that's what my risk was. But it was a great cut. This thing kind of just, as soon as I exited, it kind of dropped out even further underneath me. So great cut for that 3 minutes after that. But then, of course, rebounded immediately back to VWAP. Had another attempt to that high of day and just kind of chopped around once again and again. Had another little fake out, breakout high of day. Here pulled back once again. Looked like it was weak, but still higher low than what the low of day was from before my exit. Curled back again to VWAP. Tried again at that high of day attempt and looked like it was going to do it, and then failed again with volume coming in here, of course, to along with all of those different moves. And this was just a slow grind to a nice just below $9 whole level. So ended up working out for what kind of a first green day bounce was, in a sense, within that move in the morning session. It doesn't look that great on the daily as well, because for what it's in the afternoon session. But this was really the trade. I didn't know it was going to be. I thought my intuition coming into this one, for what little preparation work I did, just kind of more on the side of blindly following TUI's alert versus the preparation work I came into this one. But thought it was going to be more of a quick move than it actually was. So I potentially wasn't ready to sit through this long of a grind, even though that was what it took for the characteristic on the stock for that one today. Lower floater, yeah, looking for that first green day push. Not crazy of a position size, but a decent position size for what I thought it could do, the former runnerness of it, the low floatingness of it. And yeah, I'm happy with that position size and happy with the cut I took. Looking back in hindsight, it would have taken a lot more gall on my part, and definitely a lower position size with a wider risk tolerance in order to take a pullback all the way below $8 level at that point, to hold all the way to this point. That would have been quite some balls on me to do that. But that was DATS. Getting into GROM now. Here I am again with 3 trades, 3 in and outs on this one. Again, when I could have totally eliminated the first 2 and been slam dunk on the last one. And I didn't even trade pretty much the most kind of optimal trade that Monaco and TUI actually traded pretty decently for this move. Just kind of at the closing of the morning session after the first hour of market open. Of course, this is the crazy runner from yesterday that I didn't trade yesterday, but that was the trade I was looking for 2 days ago when I tried to trade it and just let it do its thing yesterday. But now again today, it's getting this little bit of a gap down from the close, but still kind of holding ish well. It was like people were mentioning that too, like, oh, keep your eye on GROM, and Tim Bowen as well too. I think GROM was his number 1 actually for what he was looking for, and really didn't have that insight into it or that feeling that, oh, this thing could just squeeze crazy. But certainly wasn't going to doubt that if it started poking those levels once again, I knew that shorts were definitely going to be bagged in this one. They get scared out pretty easily, and this thing could run just insanely quick. So breaking down trades precisely here, each one of these was 200 shares in and out, so just slinging a lot of my cash account at this one today. But the third one ended up working out decently well. I think this was for my first cut, that's 5 to 5.36%. That was not a terrible, crazy trade, but then of course ended up cutting that last half of the trade. So it ended up being a 3% trade in total for that third one. And then after, in total on the trade, I think it ended up positive like $2 after all was said and done on those 3 trades. But the first attempt, total chasey trade. Thought it was just, I was riding on volume and I thought it could just go crazy parabolic. When again, I've got to be willing to let it go. And especially since I didn't have anything hard set coming in onto this one, I should have been just totally willing to let it ride, do what it wants to do, and not get chased out. This one ended up being a little bit of a scalpy profit for 2 or 3 cents that I looked out on as it was pulling back more after my entry. It perked pretty nicely after my entry and then pulled back a little bit more. I said, okay, shoot, get out. I recognized when I made a mistake and got out when I could. And then I had this little bit more of a consolidation. I thought we were just going to get a hard ripping continuation from there again, which was still, obviously in hindsight, it's easy to say too, that was a stupid trading mistake. In the moment, the emotions, the excitement, and having to take that first cut, I was thinking I'm kind of evading the law, right? And I was just being a little bit naughty. I was putting my hand in the cookie jar, tried my hand again at it, thinking, okay, this is a good entry, basing out here. But at that point, it's still a decent way from VWAP. It's kind of, you're guessing at that point of the probability for this thing to come on. You have to be basing that trade off of hard volume to come in on the bid to push this thing to the upside, slapping the ask on the time and sales. I don't really know that I identified that well at that point. And I recognize that again too. I always seem to cut these trades so much smarter than I enter them, which in essence is a good situation, but I need to be doing that on both sides of the equation, not just one. So we get this pullback, fails to break VWAP here still, holds hard red, same amount of volume coming in. Establish another entry, I think. Okay, I think it's kind of a fake out pullback. All the shorts are like, we're trying to get on that little peak, or saying, okay, maybe this thing breaks VWAP or maybe it doesn't. I thought there was a lot more upside in this one for what it could do. Had another good entry, pulled back more, fails to break VWAP again, which I'm glad I held through, even though my stop was, I forget where my first stop on that one was after I entered, but gave it plenty of room to say, hey, I'm willing to go with this one. If it's going to pull back more and break through my stoppage, I've got to take that on and learn my lesson at some point, that I can't do those first 2 trades, those chasey situations. I got to learn my lesson to get those better entries, come into it like my rule set says for this month of temporary rule set. If I don't have a trade on this one coming into the day, then you can't trade it. Don't try and trick yourself into believing because there's volume there, because there's big volatility and percentage moves coming in, that, oh, that's obviously a good trade. Anytime you see any amount of little consolidation or technical trade aspect to get an entry off of this, rid myself of that and trade what is there, not what I want to believe is there, I think is a great way to say that. So we get a nice another hook, bounce off of VWAP again, breaks out new high of day at this point, and really struggling around. It's in my head too as I'm reading this situation. Breakouts should, especially on this one, it should be moving extremely quickly away from price immediately. And it just was failing to do that. It was very, very slow the whole time. It wasn't like it was panicking hard one way or another, but just very slow. So I took off definitely half at that point, which I was in store to sit through this thing at minimum to $6. I did think there was plenty more in the bag, but reeled myself back to understand, trade what is there. And it was a good exit at that point too, to take off profits as it was kind of failing to break out with volume, especially too, looking at these 3 volume candles that were getting it to that breakout high of day point again. Just nothing was really happening. Double topped here again and then peeled off. And that's what I cut it precisely there before another amount of slippage as it broke under VWAP. But then fake out there again too for the longer intraday trend. I think I'm fine with myself saying to get out at that point, because it could have, who knows what it would have done even more after this within these next 10, 15 minutes after that crack of VWAP. You are playing with fire at that point if you're still in a long position around that previous entry point, around an entry point there, entry point anywhere around here, for what it would do the next time. But then you do get that curl, a nice actual push to a new breakout high of day. Great consolidation area here. I think this was where the small cap boys got their entry points. Looking at, again, I think they even mentioned it, they summed it up pretty perfectly, of this thing should not have been consolidating so much for how much was going on yesterday, how many shorts are still bagged in this thing, the percentage moves that it's putting in, is it incredibly low floater too? I just keep, it's 4.2 million floater. Has the room to just go parabolic on you before you realize it. Why is this thing just chopping around so much? And I had a great opportunity to watch the level 2 super hard time and sales as well. Super hard the whole run up on this thing. And for how fast it was, for how choppy, inconsistent it was too. It's so hard for me to say too that I was reading into anything. Of course, I think that takes it potentially is possible to pick up any signs that's going on that. But for now, I think I'm just chasing waterfalls for what it's doing there. Thinking I can read into that was saying for how quick it's going in and out and so many different variables that affect that too. But just being able to watch this run up itself too was a great experience, and I'll never regret that in a sense to taking the time to look at those different factors. But that's a great trade too that those boys capitalized on. I think they actually sold just before 6, so they even nailed a perfect 6-2 move, which I was surprised as well too. I didn't think it could go to 6-2 watching that time in sales. But that's where it went. Peel back again to VWAP, which, at that point I'm selling, or at that point as I'm watching this one, and you get this second little attempt at a high day, and then it fails at this candle here. I'm thinking this could be a good little short opportunity. Peel back to VWAP, and of course, very predictable. Not a perfect 10%, but easy sale, even getting around like 595 here within this candle after that hard red candle pullback. Taking it easy. It looks kind of decent here, but you get a hard pullback, take off at 5.5, and you are absolutely golden. That was pretty predictable and reasonable trade to say after that hard parabolic move for how far it was from VWAP, especially too. That pullback there was very nice. Little trading block to the downside for a short. Double bottom off of VWAP here. Perk again attempts to break a new high a day. It actually does, but then another fake out attempt again. And once again, another trading block to the downside that you could have certainly based off of the exhaustion of these volume candles that try and try and try again to get to new parabolic breakout points, but just fail over and over and over again. Hard red candles to come in with that. Even though they weren't like slamming volume candles immediately following that too, these red candles aren't like stand out volume candles. Like there was just massive amount of overhead. It's just like somebody's liquidating some amount of shares into meeting supply and demand on this one, I think. So great short on that one. If this thing, I'm kind of copying my watch list for tomorrow that I'll get in at the end of the video. But yeah, certainly if we get a gap up on this thing tomorrow, the daily could say that if anywhere around these key levels, could see some fireworks, especially going into a Friday as well too. Shorts are not going to want to be holding over the weekend on such a volatile stock as this one. So could see some fireworks potentially. It'll certainly be on the watch list. So that, and especially short sale restricted as well. So we will certainly keep it on watch. And then CEI, I got to mention, what a bounce day on this one. 95% in the green on this. Just kind of a slow, hard grind. You get this morning session that looks like it's great and then breaks VWAP, but then it holds that higher low of day. Tries again, get this little bit of a wedge here within the first few hour and a half hour market. Breaks the upside, holds V up well. You get a nice push to new high day, holds well again, then just a slow grind, nice little profit opportunities there on that point for CEI. I wasn't watching it hard. I think I was definitely away from the computer or still looking at GROM at that point especially. But great first green day bounce on that one. This is certainly a chart to keep in memory, even for applying this to OTCs, even though it's a listed ticker. Man, what a freaking great example, A+ example of what these stocks routinely do time and time again of Tim Sykes' 7-step framework. Great example, great move opportunity on that one today. So like I mentioned, watch list going into tomorrow. GROM, we're going to see if there's any amount of volume or gap up going into Friday too. It could be pretty nice. And then ENZC, didn't watch this one at all, but pulled it up after hours here, doing little scans. We'll see if there's any amount of continuation on this one. Let's do that. Was a pretty hard volume day today. I see easily to spot out this little cupish area here. That 20-cent mark could have some influence for if it's going to gap up above there. If that's going to have any factor, even pre-market, or if we're just blowing that out of the water going into the open tomorrow, that could certainly be a nice kind of second day-ish opportunity to the upside on this one for the former runners, especially had in the past too. Could get interessante, but that is all I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching. We will catch you guys on the next one.